Bill 2025 has been introduced in Lok Sabha, proposing a comprehensive overhaul of India's immigration laws. The bill aims to enhance national security, streamline immigration procedures and impose stricter penalties on foreigners who violate entry and stay conditions. It also introduces a significant shift by placing the burden of proving legal status on individuals rather than the state. The bill explicitly states that any foreign national posing a threat to national security, sovereignty or integrity will be denied entry or permission to stay in India. It also proposes mandatory registration for foreigners upon arrival, restricting their movement, name changes and access to protected or restricted areas. Additionally, institutions such as educational establishments, hospitals, nursing homes will all be required to report foreign nationals to immigration authorities. The new legislation is seeking to replace colonial-era laws, including the Foreigners Act 1946, the Passport Entry into India Act 1920, the Registration of Foreigners Act 1939. These laws, enacted during the World War era, are now seen as outdated, and the government argues that a unified framework is necessary to avoid overlapping regulations. It also seeks to repeal the Immigration Carriers Liability Act 2000 by creating a single comprehensive framework for regulating foreigners entering India. Anand Singh is joining us live for more details on this story. Anand, take us through this bill which has been tabled today in Parliament, and what are the conditions and changes it's proposing?
Yeah, well, look, today the government brought this, the Foreigners and Immigration Bill 2025 in the Parliament, and it was tabled by Minister of State for Home Affairs Nityanand Rai. So this bill proposes to repeal the 4 laws that the colonial laws were there, especially the 1946 Foreigners Act, then 1920 Passport Act, which allowed entry into India, and then Immigrations Act 1939. So all these bills which were earlier there, the rules were earlier there, they all will be removed, and then this bill will come up as the main body for the foreigners and immigration purposes if it is passed in the Parliament. However, some of the members demanded that in the Parliament that this should be sent to the standing committee, whereas Nityanand Rai explained that why this bill was required for the security of the country. If we especially talk about this bill, then this bill clearly mentions that how if any of the foreigners traveling to India is found a threat to India's unity, integrity and sovereignty, then he will be not granted entry into the India, and if he is staying in India, then he can be returned back to his native country. This bill also proposes that any of the educational institutions, whether it is universities or colleges or any hospitals or the nursing stations, they need to report about the foreigners to immigration authorities. So clearly this bill lays down the procedure for them, and there are hefty fines that has been announced by the government in this new bill, as it mentioned that if anyone is found entering into India without proper documents, then they can be given jail term up to 5 years and even a fine up to 5 years, and if forged documents have been used by any of the foreign people traveling to India, then they can face fine up to rupees 2 lakh to 10 lakh and imprisonment from 2 years to 7 years. So clearly this bill mentions all these parts, whereas if any of the carriers who have been transporting the foreign nationals without any valid documents, then they will be also liable to pay a fine of rupees 5 lakh and even the seizure of their transport if the fine is not paid to the government. So clearly this underlines several of the part that the government has mentioned, and this bill also mentions that how if some of the people who are facing actions from any of the authorities in India, then they cannot leave the country without informing the authorities, and even if they have been found, government will have complete control on them for their restricted entry or their restricted movement, and even the change in their names and access to restricted or prohibited areas, then they can send them back. So these are the highlights that this Foreigners and Immigration Bill 2025 proposes by replacing the 4 of the old bills that were already present in India since 1920 onwards. Back to you there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anand Singh, for joining us with those details. Now, 4 days after the attack, one of